Hi friends, it's Deanna Williston with our Blooming Catholic Life, and our book of the day is the new Crochet Stitch Dictionary. It's got 440 patterns of all kinds. Let's jump in. Okay, first I want to show you the first thing I created with it and why I got it. I love making blankets for hospice, and they need to be the width of a twin bed, but not terribly deep. So you can see it can also be used as a shawl. This is kind of a pattern I've never seen before. You can see it's alternating shells, and it's got some double crochets between, and I'm working on an edging all around. Now, how did I find something? I'm always looking up lacy patterns for hospice, and I know roughly the size I want it. So all I need is the stitches, and that dawned on me this weekend. All I needed was the stitches. I needed just the pattern for the stitches. I don't need a full blanket pattern. I don't need a fancy account somewhere. I just need a book with stitch patterns. And I don't know if you're like me, if you've been crocheting for a while, you probably have like those calendars where it's a new stitch every day, or one of those ones that's a card in a box and you pull out the card and it's a new stitch or pattern in. And those are fun to help you experiment and grow your techniques and just really expose you to what's out there. But when you say, I want a blanket, it needs to be about this size, and I need something, in this case, I need something fairly lightweight. So I'm doing crochet, which is already heavier than knit, but I need something that's going to be lacy, airy, right? And so I need a lacy pattern. I wanted something kind of girly because this yarn was an ombre pink, so I thought I needed something a little girly. And I didn't want it to be overtly girly either, but how bright and cheerful this yarn was. I really wanted something to do it justice. And so I literally walked into my Michael's, and this book was just sitting there. I will not lie, the coupons did not work on this book. This book runs about $30. It is a chunky monkey. I will tell you, it weighs a ton. This is not something you are going to want to carry around in your crochet bag for long. This is more of a sit at home, get the pattern, and you're going to see how that is actually easy to do. Let's jump in and look at some of the nerdy bits first. The official name of it is just the New Crochet Stitch Dictionary. They do want you to know that it was printed by a company in Connecticut, but it was originally in the German, and it was copyrighted in Germany in 2018. Now, when they say all rights reserved in this book, it does have the normal, you can use it for reviews, that's all good, you can quote passages in a review. Then it gets a little weird. The contents of this book are for personal use only. Patterns herein may be reproduced in limited quantities for such use. Any large-scale commercial reproduction is prohibited without the written consent of the publisher. What does that even mean? So a lot of these patterns are traditional, but some of them the author created for this book. Now, how much they created it and it was never used before, I don't know. And maybe that's something, I will say I expected that to be noted in the pattern, like just a little asterisk if it was one that was really in limited use and that was not a traditional pattern, but they're not marked in any way. So that's a little awkward. But not most of us are not large-scale commercial reproduction, and it says nothing about charitable donations. So unsure there, we'd have to contact the publisher. And that is, I don't know, it doesn't really tell you who you're contacting there. The publishers in Connecticut were www.globepico, so PEQUOT.com. It says it's distributed by National Book Network, 800-462-6420. But then we had that original German edition, and that is www.topp-kreativ.de. And then this edition is published with arrangement by www.agency-boehme.com. So what publisher are we supposed to contact? It is not very clear at all, but it is available as an ebook if you need to know that. It does tell us that it's available as an ebook. Whew. I'll put that in the description below. That's a lot to try and say on here. They do also want you to know they've made every effort to ensure the accuracy and completeness of the instructions. They cannot, however, be responsible for human error, typographical mistakes, or variations in individual work. 6 minutes in just to discuss all that. How does this book work? Here's the table of contents. It's not, they could have put this all on one page, but they really spread it out, didn't they? And it's not the most clearest directions. So basic stitch patterns, shell and fan patterns, clusters, popcorns, bobbles, puffs, and nups, spike stitch patterns, raised stitch patterns, mesh and trellis patterns, cross and interlocking stitches and cables, ripple and chevron patterns, edges and borders, granny squares. Then there's crochet basics, and then there's the almighty index, which is pretty powerful in this book. Now, while I do have some tabs on it, can you see the page edges are different colors? So they let you know when you're in a new section. I am probably going to put the good hard tabs on here and label them a little bit. Some of these, like, you can't label it clusters, popcorns, bobbles, puffs, and nups, but you might puff on a little tab, right, and make it easy to turn to. What is covered under basic stitch patterns? Slip stitch, ridges, V-ridge look, knit look, garter stitch, cord-like texture, flat single crochet. You think flat single crochet would be like the very first thing, but it's not. Broad slip stitch ridges, ridge lines, curly stripes, single crochet ridges, horizontal V ridges, staggered half double crochets, ridges with half double crochets, combined stripes, knot stitch in rows, knotted double crochet, knotted half double crochet. So they are not in order of complexity at all, even in the basic stitches, but we're going to look at one of the very basic ones. We're going to look at this one. Now it is stitch pattern number 1. Over here it's telling you it's +1. Any stitch count +1 beginning chain. So that's just any stitch count is that icon there for that little crochet hook. That means any stitch count, and it's +1. So your starting chain is literally anything plus one more than you want. Then you're going to work in rows following the chart. Work rows 1 to 4 once, and then repeat rows 3 and 4 for the pattern. So just chaining is your setup row. And then what do these symbols even mean? Let's look at that. There's always a chart key. So in this case, the dark circle, the open circle is a chain 1. The dark circle is 1 slip stitch into the slip stitch of the previous row, which is tilted towards the back. You can see why I said this is not the basic one. I'm really surprised this is listed as the first basic stitch. The solid circle with a half an open circle underneath it means 1 slip stitch through the back loop of the beginning chains only. Now these are symbols that I've not seen before, but over here you get to some more standard ones. The X here is, not that one, this guy down here. This is starting chain. That's pretty standard. The X for single crochet, pretty standard. And then what is this star stitch? This is your beginning chain at the beginning of the row, chain 2, right turn, chain 2. All of these will have a small picture of the stitches, a small set of directions, a chart, and a chart key. So we're just going to flip. Where's the pattern I just did? This one that I showed you is called Shells and Ribbons. Now I began my crochet journey with doilies, so most of these charts make complete sense to me. I hope this is one I'm allowed to show. These are all standard symbols here. This is the one I'm giving you. You probably could have figured it out just from looking at the work, so I'm okay with that. So the setup row is a chain, and you can see it's showing you the pattern is 10 stitches. So our cast on is a multiple of 10 plus 3 plus 1 beginning chain. So plus 3 chain plus 1 beginning chain. That gives us our beginning, and then we see this. Because this is our 3 here, right? And then we're having our 1 beginning. The 1 beginning is like this little guy here that we're going to work across our single crochets for. They tell us this is a double. This is a double shell, right? There's 5 in 1 stitch, 5 doubles in 1 stitch, and this is a single crochet. So pretty easy to understand. They did tend to color code things, so everything in the shell and fan pattern is done in that purplish yarn, which matches the edges of the pages. See? So it's pretty easy to see flipping through the book what section you're in. Are you going to memorize this? Probably not. The clusters, popcorns, puffs, blah, 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 is probably going to be in some kind of yellowish yarn. And in fact, this one's in more of a variety. They're different beiges and yellows, and I'll just show you that little bit. So it's always this little picture. I kind of wish the pictures were bigger. I don't need the repetition of the chart key, but it's nice that it's in there. Why? You could take a picture of any of these. They're all the directions are roughly about a half a page. That's it for each of these stitch patterns. And you could easily take a picture of it on your phone. Then you're always going to have that to carry around as you work on your project. Lovely, right? And again, they do give you that chart key in every single one. So they tell you what the unique pattern stitches are, but they give you a symbol for it. And the symbols are pretty small. It gives you, sometimes there's little tips in the description as well. It's not just a written description. Most of the written description is tips, and the technical stuff is in the chart key. Give me just a second to get a drink. Some of these are just funny. Twirly nups, funnel nups. They have such funny names. There are seriously 400 in here. If you're wondering what spikes mean, I'm not entirely sure myself, and I have never seen some of these symbols before in my life. I'm trying to show you just enough that I don't get in trouble with the copyright. Isn't this interesting? So some of them are dropping below, it looks like, or almost the crochet version of cables that I've done before. They're very interesting. Does it tell us what spike stitch means? It never defines that term. I would have liked a little definition of what a spike stitch is, because they look very different. This is still in spike stitch, the opened diamond pattern. Wild, right? Then we have the raised stitch. So these are your things that you end up doing, like double crochet in front. So that's like a basic cable. Let's see if we can see some others. Some of these are a little bit harder to see. I think I saw one here that was almost all of a page. This is broad stripes of raised cables. This has a giant chart. Look at this chart. This is insane, right? Let's go back. When you get to the mesh and trellis, it means exactly that. This is your laciest of lace work. It's probably a bit too lacy for something for hospice or babies. Babies can get their fingers stuck in things, and we don't want to trap any babies. So mesh and trellis I would stay away from for littles or for hospice. But then we get to stitch patterns with crossed and interlocking stitches. And some of that looks a lot like some of our other sections, so you may not be sure where to find things, right? I wouldn't necessarily call that crossed stitches, but they do in fact have crossed stitches. It's pretty wild when you look at it. Let's look at some more. Chevrons and ripples make the most sense, but some of them get very fancy. Look at this one. This was called a wave with a fan. Wild, right? I've never seen one like that. So that could be one of the new ones. I don't know. Maybe it's traditional. I thought it was fascinating. I do want to point out some things to you in the end when you get to the edgings and borders. This is a little bit different. Now it is still going to have your multiples up here. You need a multiple of 4 plus 2 chains plus 1 beginning chain, right? It's just a picot edge, but you can see it's not on a blanket. So you can make the edges separately and sew them onto things. So if you're making dish towels and you want a fancy edging, or a baby blanket that you're making out of flannel, or whatever. Towels, yeah, towels are common. Sheets, you can do these in lace weight, in your cotton thread, you know, your really thin bedspread weight cotton, and make this as an edging and sew it onto sheets. You can even sew them onto clothing. But if you're adding them to a crochet piece, it's going to be a little different. And so they tell you, in this picot edging, it says, work in rows following the chart. If the edging is crocheted directly onto the main piece, the selvage stitches of the crochet or knitted piece replace the beginning chain. So wherever you're putting it on, you can see here on this one, I have my raggedy single crochet setup row that I'm using for the rest of the edging. This kind of thing would replace your beginning chain. So I would need to do multiple of 4 plus 2 plus my 1 beginning. It doesn't tell you how to go around corners. That's the thing. Most of these are flat, so you'll have to figure out the corners yourself. That's something that was not covered that I was kind of sad about. I didn't talk about how to do them around the corners. But you could work each piece flat and sew them together, adding them later if you want. Okay, add it to the selvage stitches of the crocheted or knitted piece. Replace the beginning chain, right? Begin every row with the stitches before the pattern repeat. Repeat to the marked pattern repeat, which is in this case is 4 stitches wide. Do it widthwise and end with the stitches after the pattern repeat. Repeat rows 1 to 3 once. This includes the stitches involved in this one are a chain 1, a double crochet, a single crochet, and a picot, as well as a crossed double crochet. So this is a fancy version of a picot edging. Everybody says that word differently. I'll go ahead and show you this one particular one. Here's what they mean. They have it marked. Pattern beginning, pattern ending. This is just the repeat section in here in the middle. So this one does give you a little bit more direction, right? Now, there are a couple problems in here. Number 377 is arced edging with picot chains. So it has picots at the bottom. So how are you going to attach this to something? It's in the description. It tells you here, and this is why you read the written notes. Don't just jump into the chart. Work in rows following the chart. Begin every row with the stitches before the pattern repeat. Repeat the marked pattern repeat, in this case 10 stitches wide, widthwise, and end with the stitches after the pattern repeat. Work rows 1 through 4 once. In row 2, work the double chain together into the chain space of the previous row around the chain. After having completed row 3, move to the start of the beginning chain by working chain 1, 5 slip stitches, and then work into the unused stitches on the other side of the beginning chain for row 4 as shown. And now, pay attention, join the edging at the picots to the crocheted or knitted main piece. So this one needs to be made separately, and then you're going to join it in the picots. Now you could do that by sewing on, but you certainly could be crocheting across and then grabbing that little picot as you go and joining it into your other stitch. There was another one that was slightly peculiar that I did see. Some others maybe, but on number 2, page 215, number 383, the flower trim does not give you any hint at all on how to attach this. It's a lovely little flower, but I'm guessing you could just sew onto the loops, or this is something that would do really well on a towel, not on the edge, but as the decorative edge. We all know towels usually have that ribbon about, I want to say 3 to 4 inches before the edge, or that ribbon that runs along sheets, so this could be sewed along that ribbon edge. That would make sense, but you would sew the entire piece down, not just part of it. You'd go around the outside probably. Anything else that's interesting? Yes, I really wanted to show you the end. They have a whole section on granny squares, and they're pretty wild. You're really going to enjoy that section. They're not the crazy ones that people come up with. It's mostly different types of flowers. Okay, this one blew my mind a bit. I could not do that one. That was pretty crazy, right? But there's a lot of different kinds of flowers. How many different kinds of flowers they have in here is pretty astounding, right? It's crazy. And then this one's completely different over here, the lacy square. The lacy square may be something completely lovely for hospice, whereas that starburst one, that's a little bit too loopy for that. So some of them are more lace and some of them are more filled in. There's some with puff stitches. There are some triangles. This one is a star flower. Literally a star flower. Crazy, right? That's in the granny square. So there's quite a variety back there. It doesn't get as crazy as some of the books do. Crochet Basics is all the way in the back. It does have the abbreviations, the symbols, whether a pattern is worked in the round or not. It does have the... Maybe I had that whole crochet hook symbol wrong. The crochet hook symbol with a +1. It says for this stitch pattern, it is recommended to use a hook 1 millimeter larger than for other stitch patterns worked in the same yarn. This will prevent the crocheted fabric from turning out too dense. And it is also much easier to insert the crochet hook into the stitches that are not too tight. I completely missed that. That's why you need to have these nerdy reviews and read your books the whole way through before you start. So for that, you would look on your yarn label, and it's going to tell you. This one here I had, my ombres I was using, was a red heart one. And it will tell me here that I need to use crochet hook eye size 9, which is a 5.5 millimeter. And it's telling me I should use something bigger. And in fact, I was using a 6 millimeter. I had done it just to make it bigger and lacier, but I was not wrong, apparently. No wonder it worked out so nice. Okay, so I could have gone up to as much as a 6.5. I did not know that. It says you can go up a whole millimeter. Okay, that's so fascinating. I've never seen that symbol before, so it's something new that I learned. About the foundation chain. So there's a couple paragraphs here about your foundation chain and how to read, a short one on how to read the instructions, which starts out, it's really a header for a section, but for some reason it's on the bottom of the page, and then all the rest of the directions are on the next one. So it talks about crochet charts, all the symbols, how to make a gauge swat, again, how to read crochet charts, and then we have the basic stitch patterns. This I love back here. So it's going to give you the name and your stitch count. Do you not love this? Look, it tells you your starting chain and what page number it's on. I loved this so much. Okay, so let's look at that. Go to page 18, and is that what's on page 18? All over texture, all over texture. Yeah, so back here in this basic stitch patterns, this is done alphabetically so that you can go back and find your favorite, and it gives you the beginning chain right away. So if you remember how to do it, all you probably need is your beginning chain. It does tell you a little bit back here about the authors. Ta-da! All the way in the back, just a little bit. So Nella Brass studied graphic design and photography at the Folkwang University of the Arts in Essen, Germany. After graduating, she held editorial positions in the photography departments of different magazines, including many years at Geo. She later worked as a freelance photographer in the areas architecture, interior design, garden, and people for several lifestyle magazines. Crocheting and knitting, started in childhood, have fascinated her to this day. Her greatest pleasure has always been creating her own designs and implementing them into useful objects. Evelyn Hetty-Burkart works as a freelance editor and author for magazine and book publishers. Her area of expertise includes a wide array of crafty techniques, spanning from the initial design idea and creative implementation to pattern writing. Crochet is her favorite. She lives with her husband and son near Hamburg, Germany. This is really a lovely book. If you're looking to, if you're good at knowing the mechanics and things, like I know how to make a sweater for my size, I know how to make blankets in general, I know how to make edgings in general, and I just want to know the stitch patterns, and I get rid of all those apps and patterns and magazines and books that are cluttering up my house. This could be a simple way to downsize all of that and just grab this. Like I said, when you're working on a particular pattern, you can easily take a picture of it to keep on your phone and have that to go with you. Even if you printed it out, it'd just be a small little thing to print out from there. This is also, again, available as an ebook. So easy to downsize there with that, right? And you can probably blow that up, the text, whatever you need that way as well. Friends, I hope this book has blessed you on your journey. Don't forget, if you like this channel, to like, share, and subscribe. Our craftier and nature videos air every Wednesday at 2 p.m. New York time. God bless you, friends.